Okay, I think we are now recording. Hello to everyone that is listening. I know that we took a large break, a much needed break from a podcast, but we are back. Thank you for listening, tuning. This is another episode of Weekly Grace, and I have a really special person right next to me. He is my mentor. He goes by multiple names. I like to call him Pastor T because that's who he is to me.
Thank you
But
so
yes,
much.
what's up, Pastor Tony? How you doing?
Thank you so much for the very kind introduction and the very warm words for me. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to share with you guys a little bit more about what's going on in this crazy world.
Yes, this crazy world. I think one of the biggest things that the reason why we wanted to do this podcast, and I'm trying to get Pastor Tony to come on because he has so many things to say, so many wise things to say. But I'm really excited to talk to him and to whoever is listening. We hope that this is a beneficial talk for you guys. The main reason why we're here is to talk what's going on, not only in our church, Casa de Luz House of Light Church, but just what's going on in the scope of the church, the universal church around the world. We start seeing that many churches, now that they can't get together, or are encouraged not to get together, they're going online, and what that's doing is we're changing the method, and actually the practices aren't really there. The practices of getting together,
Yes.
worshiping together, we're kind of losing that. And so we wanted to talk about what's the future, what's to come with the church. I don't know if you wanted to give a little bit more on that.
Yeah. Well, it's really big. You know, it's hard to even know what happens in your local church, let alone the church in the country and then the church in the world. So I don't think we can claim that we know what's
Of
happening
course.
in the church in the world,
Yeah.
but we can talk about what's happening in our context and the things that we see here. And you pointed at that really, in a very good terms, the method that we are using. I just got off of a conference, an important conference that has been going on for many years about church planting and other things, and I was listening to the people who were given the conference about what is the future of the church, and what is the opportunity that we have before us. And I tell you the truth, I was a little disappointed about it because it was basically how do we transform the method that we have. By that I mean how do we move the worship service online and make it better.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And that really made me not upset. That's not the right word. I was disappointed. that we're still looking at the method of gathering the people of God. And we talked about this last Sunday, that the important thing about the church, or one of the important things about the church, is the gathering of the people of God. And so we have a method for that. It's not a bad one. We've used it for a good number of years, the worship service, but it's gone already. And so what I heard in the conference today was, how do we keep this thing alive? How do we keep the method alive? How do we continue to put on a worship service so people can enjoy it? And I think, just trying to answer the question that you asked at the beginning, I think that is the wrong approach to the church in the future. Yes.
So when you talk about the wrong approach, I think we've had multiple conversations, especially this last Sunday. We literally did this when we just sat down, and we were kind of giving you, the audience, the people listening, the people watching this, questions to interact, because I think, and I'm going on 5 months where I'm saying 4 months. I think I said 4 months. It's actually 5 months.
5 months.
5 months that we've been doing the same thing over and over again. And we're not saying that it's a bad thing. We're not saying that it was a bad method. It worked, worked what we were doing, coming together, doing the worship service. But now we don't have that. And so just the simple fact of, it's Sunday morning. What do? You wake up, you take a shower, you go to church.
Yeah.
one of the practices that we do. That's one of the things that we do. But now we don't have
We
that.
don't have that exactly.
So that's the danger of moving forward. Like, how are we gonna wake up, brush our teeth, get ready and all that, and then stand in front of a screen? There's no real interaction with that, and that's the problem that we see moving forward. So, I have a lot of questions, but how do you see one of the first things I just wanted to open up, just with trying to keep these practices, and I'm doing air quotes right now for those that you can't see me. How can we keep the practices with changing this method?
Yeah, that's actually the real important question. So it comes to the reason why the church exists, and what is the church, and that's a big question to ask. When we ask, oh, what is the church? And a lot of people will say, well, the church is the place where we go and sing songs and do a few things, and then we go home and get to try to live the Christian life. And so I think one of the biggest misunderstanding that we have in the church culture in America is about what the church is, and particularly what the worship service is. And we've mentioned this before. We've said it before any of this happened. We've been saying this for years now, that we have made the worship service the focal point of Christianity. We've made it the thing. Even when we talk about church planting, we actually talk about starting worship services as opposed to making disciples.
That's the first thing that you say when you're planning a church.
Exactly. You're going to plant a church and you think, okay, we need a building, we need sound equipment, we need a good preacher, we need this, we need that to launch a worship service. And I think we've made a poor decision, or we took the wrong turn when we started seeing the worship service as the main thing in the Christian life. Now, don't get me wrong, because the gathering of the people of God, it's one of the most important practices of the church, but it is not the church. The church is something more than the time coming together. The worship service exists to practice some collective disciplines, or some spiritual practices that are aimed to form us as the people of God. And we cannot get rid of it. We shouldn't get rid of it or exchange it for an online worship service, because the formative practices actually shape us collectively as the people of God. Now, you don't have that, and you don't have formation as the people of God. And so the question that you ask is really important. How do we keep the practice or the practices and change the method? Because the method that we were using 5 months ago is dead. Some churches are still trying to hold on to it, and it may come back in the future. And hopefully, if you are a little of the church, you're not hearing this wrong. We're not saying that church is done or over or anything like that. We're saying that the method that we have used to gather the people of God, what we call the worship service, is gone. And it may not come back in the next couple of months, maybe even years. And even if it comes back, it's going to be different from what we knew in the future. But the practices, the collective practices that make us the people of God, need to be put in place in any setting that we choose, or in any method that we choose, as we bring together the people of God.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's like a different way of approaching it, just because a little while ago I was on Facebook and I was scrolling. You know how you can like sponsor ads, right? So I got a sponsored ad and I was watching with David. There's actually a church, not to be mentioned, but like you said, they're still trying to hold on, and they're having these these gatherings, these large gatherings right now in the season of COVID. They're having gatherings of the worship service. And I think you're right. I think people are trying, or leaders or churches, they're trying to hold on to this now, I guess we can say, old way of looking at the method. One thing that, when you were talking, one thing came up. Another thing that a lot of people haven't, or maybe they have, but maybe we can voice this out and say it. We've been talking about maybe this is a time where God is trying to lead us into not, hey, try to hold on to the way things were, but instead, hey, what if I have something new for the church? What if this is a time where God is dismantling
Right.
with what we've been doing 5 months ago
Yeah.
and changing us, or maybe converting into something new?
Yeah, I think that that question is that that idea needs to remain in our heads, in our hearts as we move forward.
Mm-hmm.
What is the church? The church is not the worship service. We've said that before.
Mm-hmm.
The church is a it's a new humanity. It's the people of God, scattered throughout the city and the country, and at some point the people of God comes together.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we've made it so that the coming together is equal to the church, and I think and I've been really thinking a lot about this and praying about this, because this pandemic didn't didn't catch God by surprise.
Yeah.
He wasn't like, oh man, now my people cannot come together to worship you. What is going to happen?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
of
like
course.
that. And I'm not suggesting God sent the pandemic to move the church
Mhm.
towards a certain direction, but the Bible teaches us that God uses all things for the benefit of those who love Him, and because of that, I do believe that that God is bringing down some misconceptions about what it means to be the people of God,
Yeah.
and so He's moving us towards maybe a different not only understanding but a different practice of being the church. And now this question is actually consuming me every
Yeah.
single day. I'm thinking about this. What does it mean to be the people of God in our communities, in our
Yeah.
towns, in our cities, in our homes?
Mhm.
How do we become that people? And how does it look outside when people say to me, well, we cannot do this or that because we cannot see other people. And the reality is we all have a group of people that we hang out with, and we're safe, and we talk to people. So
Yeah.
there are opportunities out there to continue being the people of God, loving our neighbors, and even loving our enemies.
Mm.
But I think it's just, I don't know if this ever happens to you when we come to a point where we don't see an exit to a problem.
Mhm.
And somebody gave this example the other day. I hope I get it right. They talk about the color. What was the color? Was it the color green, the color blue?
Mhm.
I don't remember. It's a color
It
that
was
is
a
made
color.
of different
It
colors.
was a di-
It is green. It's green and yellow make what?
Not sure.
Let's forget about the example. But the idea is, if you focus on one thing and you go like, this thing doesn't have a solution,
Yeah.
you literally block your mind from thinking about a possible solution.
Okay.
But if you see like, okay, maybe there is a third avenue, maybe there's something else that the circumstances are pointing us to. That I think is happening to us today.
Mm.
The circumstances are forcing us to think about church in a different way. Again, a lot of us, that includes us,
Yeah.
Carlos. We've been doing this, so this includes us as well. A lot of us are still trying to make the online worship service the main thing for
Yeah.
the people of God,
Yeah.
and it is so hard to let go
Mhm.
and to say that's important. We recognize the value and the formative value of the gathering of the people of God, but the worship service is not the church. And that's something that I think personally that's going to help us to move forward as we face the next few months in the church.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good point. You're bringing up good points. One of the things that I heard you say in the midst of all of that was
Of all my
that
rambling.
yeah, all of the rambling. No, it was good. Is actually the platforms that we use.
Yeah.
Right now, our church is using two. For the English service, it's two, but for the Spanish, it's one, which is Facebook. And Facebook is a great, I guess you can say it's a good tool for maybe disengaging, to get online and kind of see what your friends are
Yeah,
up
yeah.
to, and maybe comment there, see what your family's doing in maybe a different state or country. But when you talk about the formative practices on getting on a social media platform, maybe that's not the way we should be doing those things. And so maybe you can speak on this. How can we use, or maybe is there a different tool that we can use to engage or connect the church rather than to disengage from
Yeah.
the platform of Facebook?
Yeah. Yeah, such an important question. Social media was designed to connect us, but it had an opposite effect on people. It actually disconnected us. And that's been proven in many different studies, that social media has only made people withdraw, and has people become more isolated by using social media. People become less attentive. So it is even sad that the greatest minds of our time are working on making social media more addictive, less interacting, less engaging with the world. So it makes you feel like you're engaged because you're thinking that you're seeing something. I'm not an expert on social media at all. This is just by seeing what happens to all of us as we use social media. These are tools that are designed for not for community but for isolation. And so now we have to use them for the opposite of what they've been created, right? I don't think we have at this moment another tool that we can use to mass communicate or to maintain the presence in the community. But that's again where we need to find what it means to be the church. Because if we keep holding on to our online gatherings to give us an identity as the people of God, we will soon find ourselves not having an identity at all. We need to make use of whatever is out there, Facebook, Instagram, whatever gives us an opportunity to talk. That's fine. I'm not saying those are the devil's tools. We can use them for certain things, but at the same time we need to find the way, the human way, the biblical way to gather as the people of God. And we've proposed several things. We've proposed to come back as a family and create a liturgy for the family. And we recognize that a lot of our families don't have a liturgy that will guide their spiritual life. We are so used to reading our Bibles on our own and letting God speak to us, so individualistic. So this is my relationship with God. Or we've confined it to Bible studies. And, okay, let's read what you think about. And I think we need a stronger liturgy for the family. So the family that is part of the people of God can worship God together. But also the other thing is, this is probably we have to be more careful with this one, but there are people out there that have never, that are still gathering with other people, like us. We've never stopped seeing each other. We've gone through the testing, and we know we're safe. What keeps me from coming with you on Sundays as we celebrate, the day of the Lord, and breaking bread together and praying for one another and singing a few songs or reading Psalms. I think we also need a liturgy for that, but we need to be intentional about coming together with people that we know we can come together with. Now, I'm not saying that we should just be like, hey, come to my house, everybody.
Of course.
I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, there are people out there that you are safe with. And it is very much it's much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Not comfort, but it's much easier to not do that and stay home on your pajamas and just watch the service online. That to get ready at whatever time your church is going to be coming together and say, hey, do you guys want to come together? We always hang out. We go out and eat together, or we work together, and we know that we're safe in the same environment. Do you want to come to my house? And we can do this worship thing together. Now here, I think that's when the online experience can help lead some of the liturgy at home. But by no means that online service will be the main point. It'll be just a guidance into people that are gathering together as the people of God at
Yeah, of
home
course.
and practicing the things
Mhm.
that are formative.
And I think you say another good point there, because one idea that we've been thinking about, and I've been actually like not obsessed with, but I've been talking about it a lot, is this idea of micro churches.
Mm-hmm.
And these micro churches, I looked it up because I wanted to give like a clear cut definition of what it was. In communications, I remember that they always talked about a group, and a group is a collective of 3 or more people, but no more than 20, because after 20 it gets kind of hectic,
Yeah.
gets kind of crazy. So with these micro churches, it'd be like 3 to 20 people, and I think that's what you're saying. These 3 to 20 people can be people that you're already seeing.
Yeah.
It's not like you haven't been seeing them
Right.
through this pandemic, through these 5 months. And so maybe it's time to kind of stop saying like, okay, like, I can't see you. Like, why is it that I can see you on Tuesday, but when it comes to Sunday morning, I can't see you?
Because of the convenience. It is
There it
more
is.
convenient for me to stay home and not get ready for anything. I can watch whenever I want
Exactly.
to. I don't have to participate. I can be sipping my coffee
Yeah.
and watching the pastor speak. And that obviously is it's the contradiction of the practices. Now remember this: when we get up in the morning on Sunday mornings, as you were saying, and we get together, we dress up and everything. That's a practice. The practice is we recognize we are being called as the people of God. We're living, the TV. We're living the soccer game. We're living even the family. We pass by, the shopping mall, and we say goodbye to the stores that we like, and all of that, because we're recognizing we are called as the people of God, right? Now, if you say, "Woohoo! I don't have to do that." Now it's so convenient for me to go on, and I'm not judging the people that go on vacation on the weekend.
No, of
Like, some
course
people
not.
really need it.
Yeah.
But now it's so much easier to say, "Hey, look, I can just do this, and I don't even have to go when the pastor tells me I have to go. I don't
Yeah.
have to do it at 10 anymore or
Yeah.
at 9. Now I get to do it whenever I want." And now that destroys the practice that points towards the identity of the people of God. When I used to get ready and I used to prepare my body, my mind, I would wrestle with my family to get ready on
Yeah.
time. I will wrestle with my flesh to get on time. That practice was shaping me as people that have been called from the world into a new community.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, these are the kinds of disciplines and practices that we need to keep as we change the method
Yeah.
of how we worship God together.
Yeah, and in the beginning, maybe it started like that. Maybe everyone, got over the laptop or the TV, and they were like, yeah, like it's 10 a.m. We're gonna get together. Maybe even some showered and
Yeah.
got ready, maybe. But then as time went on, it's like, well, I don't really need to get ready.
Of
And
course.
then the practice started, to kind of disintegrate, I guess you could
Yeah.
say. And that's a good point to bring up. And I think these micro churches, I think it could be something that we, first of all, just pray for wisdom, that the Lord leads us in a way that, maybe God wants us to do these things.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a really good way looking forward. One thing that I've seen as well is that, there's good and bad that we've seen during this pandemic. One of the good things that we have seen is that people do tune in that have never tuned in, maybe even in a church service.
Yeah.
And so that's a beautiful thing. But then obviously the bad is that now we have the opportunity to kind of, if I don't like what you're saying, I'll just swipe up.
Right.
and I'm done with you, right? One thing that I've seen in my own life is that when I see the people of God, even I remember one of the first Sundays we had, I think 4 people here because they were helping us out with the service. We had a very intimate time where we were able to have the Lord's Supper.
Yeah.
And we all prayed together.
Yeah.
And I started thinking in this moment, I said to myself, what if this was happening all across Sacramento?
Right.
What would that look like if we actually intentionally got together as families or these micro churches and said, you know what, we're going to take the Lord's Supper and we're going to invite whoever feels comfortable to come and partake or remember
Right.
what Christ has done for us. And I think that is where we start seeing, hey, maybe there's something here.
Exactly.
Maybe there's something here that we don't need to look at a screen or look at our laptops or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And maybe this is the point, not Pastor Tony and his family or Carlos or the Vargas singing songs. Maybe it's this, remembering the sacrifice he paid for
Right.
us.
Of course, the table of the Lord has always been, should have never stopped being the center of our worship. And, we made it something else. And so I think what you're referring to, what you're talking about here is so important. Uh, because we have said for so long that these things can only happen during worship service, then we have confined people to not do much with their own spiritual lives.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the gathering of the people of God has a very important place. Don't hear me wrong. I'm not saying that when we come together and we partake of the bread and the cup, that's not a special moment or anything like that. No, it is so unique, so special, and we will continue doing that as long as we're able to. But it's not exclusive of just one worship service. I think we need to develop this different ideas about what it means to worship around the Lord's table, and what it means to break bread together, and what does it mean to come together as families and friends, and lead one another in prayer, read psalms of exaltation and worship to God. I think that's changing the method now. The experience of the people that you were saying, those people that now are listening because of the pandemic, that's not a new thing. That has always happened with different ways of communications. For instance, radio. A lot of people came to know Christ by listening to a radio program that was broadcasted 30 years ago or something like that. It's not a new thing. So this is not like, oh my goodness, now the whole world is tuning in to watch worship services.
That's true.
That is not happening. All right, most people will scroll down and watch you for 3 seconds and then go on to something else. But there are a few people that are genuinely looking for something, and they will stay a little longer. And I think we have a responsibility to reach out to those, especially as we've said before, if people connect with us, we shouldn't neglect them. We should go after them and explain more about what it means to be a believer. But I think we're going so much against the design of these tools. I mean, TV and all those things were designed to entertain, and because we're so wired with that mentality, we need to actually work against it so it doesn't become entertainment for us, and it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt because again, it is more convenient to do nothing and just watch whatever is on the screen, or not, or pretend that you're watching. Than to actually engage in whatever is happening or engage with other people. But I do think we have an opportunity to do something different as the people of God.
Yeah, and again, that's the reason why we're here talking, just to really speak on this idea that we are trying to change. We're trying to do something different so that we're way more interactive. We don't by any means want to get comfortable. I think that's the biggest thing that I've gotten from our conversations, and I've gotten from this talk, at least, that we don't want to get comfortable with, okay, like, at least if like some people tune in, because we don't want that. We want to create disciples. And I believe one way to create disciples is to talk about these things and really get into the point, the really the core of it all, which is like, if Christ wants us to kind of get into the word a little bit more, and that kind of doesn't have to do with the worship service that we have going on, let's do it. Let's completely dismantle what we have going on and do something different. And I think that's why we're trying different ways. And from what I've heard, people are starting to kind of like that too, and that could be something that we could continue doing.
Yeah, definitely. And remember, again, the risk of seeing the worship service as the only as the thing that matters the most.
Yeah, the central point.
At the central point, it is not. So when we think about how do we move forward as a church in this season, I think of three things, and maybe this is, I'm just gonna mention them because there is no time to speak of them. Maybe for another podcast. But the gathering of the people of God, which points towards an identity, the collective practices. Now, how do we move forward by changing the method and still gathering the people of God? That's an important question to ask. Second, spiritual formation, discipleship. How do we disciple people now when it's more difficult to be with? But what I see there, it's that we weren't doing it before. We still have all the chances to be with people. We weren't walking with people. We were teaching people. We were giving courses of discipleship.
It was like lectures in a way.
Lectures and things like that. But we were not walking with people. Maybe today there is an opportunity, because there is so few people you can be with, that you can actually walk with somebody to become disciples together.
And I want to just say something on that point, number 2, just the discipleship factor, because that's something I wanted to mention. Maybe these smaller gatherings as a family, because we see when Jesus says, like, go out into all the world and preach the gospel, teach them what I've taught you. Maybe you don't even have to walk farther than your doorstep. Maybe it's even in your house that you need to disciple your own family, right? And so that's a good point, because it's like, if you're with your family, maybe it's your son or daughter or even dad or mom that you need to talk to. Hey, like, do you have a relationship with Jesus?
That and not only at home, but also in the workplace or the school. Before you had 30,000 students at Sac State that you were like, where do I begin? But now you don't have that. Maybe you have one or two friends that you can actually get together with, and now you can have more meaningful conversations. You can walk with people. You can help them in their spiritual formation. So the gathering of the people of God, the formation of the people of God, and the mission of the people of God. How do we continue to engage God and His mission? How do we continue to look with these eyes, these lenses, to our communities and our people? Because we still face the same problem. It's like, how do we do that when we can't invite people to church? Because we made it all about church, right? But maybe the questions are different. Where is God at work? Where is God moving? What can I do? Protect myself and protect others, but still engage missional in my community. We did a thing a few months ago here in the church, and I think we made a mistake at not continue doing that. We started praying for our neighbors and putting up signs outside and saying, hey, we're praying for you. We posted things online in our neighborhood saying, if you need anything, we're here. I think we need to recover that. We need to be on the look for whatever God is doing around us, and how do we love our neighbors? How do we become compassionate and hospitable? How do we share the good news of Jesus Christ to others? And here it is. To me, the blockage in our minds is that, oh man, I can't do this because I can't gather with people.
Yeah.
But that is not true. We are still gathering with the very few people that we know we're safe with. None of us have completely isolated ourselves. We still hang out with people. We still talk to people.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I think we just have to be more intentional about these things. Again, don't hear me wrong, Carlos, or anybody else. I'm not advocating for you to go out and just talk to any random people, because we're in the midst of a pandemic. You gotta be careful. But what I'm saying is, I think we could see this as an excuse to say, well, we're not gonna do anything because we can't. There hasn't been a moment in history where the people of God have been excused from participating in the mission of God.
Never.
No time. no exile, no persecution, no poverty,
Yeah.
no threat of death. Nothing has excluded the church from its right and privilege and task obligation to participate on the mission of God. And so I think we need to recover that and move forward.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and I think that's the central point, and we're gonna end off on that point because we're running out of time. But again, I think I want to end on this point because this is the 3 points that Pastor Tony made, and we were trying to make this Sunday, and I think it's a beautiful reminder for all of us to hear. And it's this, that if anyone else is fearing, or anyone else is really just scared, remember this, that He's faithful, He's patient, and He's in control. And I think we need to look at that last one, that He is in control, especially with the future of the church. God's had His church for how long, Pastor Tony?
Well,
forever.
And he's done a much better job at keeping it safe than we've ever
ever done.
ever done.
Yeah, Pastor Tony always told me that when I left, I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what I'm gonna do. He's like, dude, God has it. Don't like what are you doing? Like, he knows what He's doing. So I think I want to end off on that note. Thank you again, Pastor Tony, for having this conversation. And until next time, guys, we love you and we're praying for you always.